So we are recording. So 3, 2. Hey everyone, welcome back. Now it's time to take to the skies, and we are talking about Airplane and Airplane 2 for a little bit. Go ahead, Mikey.
That's right, Mike. We are definitely talking about the two Airplane movies, the first of which celebrates its 40th year, 40th anniversary. That's,
wow.
I know, that's insane.
So that's 20 years older than Ashley is currently, right?
I'll take it.
We do have two of our movie quote-unquote experts with us. Ashley, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me back.
And Alex.
Why was there quotes around the expert part?
Well, we'll find out. We'll find out. And then we also have with us Gary Mitchel. Gary, it's been too long.
It has, but the rash is cleared up, and I've been cleared for re-entry onto the station.
Excellent, excellent. Nervous?
No.
Okay. First time?
That's a plus. That is a triple. Yeah. The first time he's not so like, what are you guys talking about? What are you doing? Why are you tying me up to this geek seat thing?
All right. This is, man, this could get really insane because now I'm questioning, since I've been watching this movie, I now question every time someone says something, and I infer some weird, double entendre to it. Alex, we usually start with box office reports from you. So how did Airplane 1 do 40 years ago?
So Airplane 1 did actually very, very well for itself. Its worldwide gross was actually $83,453,539. Now that comes off of a domestic gross of $83,453,539.
And
they didn't have an international at all.
No international flights.
No international flights. No.
It was the fourth highest grossing film of 1980.
It was. And again, we're talking about 1980. This is, 83 million right now is fantastic if you're a member of the DCEU. In 1980, 83 million was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Sure. The breaking of the 100 million was few and far between, and it absolutely was not done by an R-rated comedy.
No.
So,
well, yeah, you say that, but number 3 was Stir Crazy. So
yeah, okay.
So
it was a different time.
And then
That's
number
right.
2,
We're bad.
in case folks were wondering, number 2 was 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And number 1, what was the number 1 movie of 1980? What could that have possibly have been?
Arthur.
Dum, 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 dum,
Yes, which made quite a bit more than 4 airplanes put together. So obviously this was a surprise to me when it came out, although I was already familiar with the genre that was spoofing. So even though I was not that old when this came out, it's still, I still, recognized what it was making fun of. And I did see this in the theater. Ashley, what is your viewing experience with Airplane? This isn't your first time, is it?
No, I'd actually watched it once before, maybe like high school or college age with a bunch of friends on Netflix. And I just remember like the film starting and seeing that airplane tail going through the clouds. And I just about died laughing. So I knew that I was in. Yes, I knew that I was in for a great time from there. And it was even more fun to watch it with friends. And as we all gasped and tried to continue breathing while laughing. So it was fun to revisit it. Sadly, it was just me alone in the basement watching it the second time. So not quite as much fun as seeing it with friends in these COVID times, but it was still nice to revisit it. And it's a fun movie for sure.
Absolutely. Alex, do you remember the first time you saw Airplane?
Yes, because I saw it in theaters as an 8-year-old. Which, by the way, this movie is not made for 8-year-olds.
No. This was before PG-13.
Yeah. No, my mother, bless her heart. I give my father all the credit in the world for all of my movie going, and then I realized that my mother took me to all the movies. My mother took myself and my sister, and I believe her Girl Scout troop. to see this movie.
Really?
Yes. To go see
Whoa.
this movie. And, you know, it was one of those things where it was like, it's a comedy. Let's go see the funny airplane movie. And and that's how I got to see Arthur too, though I'm thinking about it. But yeah, this was one of those ones that, you know, we kind of walked in. We had no idea of its lineage. We had not heard of the Kentucky Fried Movie by this point. Yeah, so I saw this one in theaters, and I remember laughing at the Jaws joke at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Then laughing whenever my family was laughing. And it was a couple of years later when I was suddenly going, that's why that's funny. Okay.
I was experiencing that just this weekend. That's why that's funny. I get it. Because there's a lot of like, I mean, every I don't know how many gags are in this movie in the first one, but it's got to be some sort of record. Between verbal gags and visual gags. I mean, there are, and some of them are double at the same time. Like it just keeps going. It doesn't let you breathe at all. So you could literally die laughing from this, I think.
Yeah. They definitely took the attitude of, even if you don't like this joke, one of the next 6 is going to get you.
Exactly. Yeah. They were like, well, let's see. We're not really sure. We're not going to cut all our jokes so much as we're just going to double down and put them all in this. And you know what, even if 1/5 of them are funny, we've got a hit on our hands.
Yeah, because if you're laughing over the jokes that don't hit,
yeah, exactly.
You know.
Gary, what about you? What do you remember your first airplane experience?
My first airplane experience in an actual plane, that's a different story. I saw it on cable. We didn't get to go out to the movies that often, and that year for going to the movies, I went to when I got to choose, I picked the one with the big giant cyborg who chokes people.
Gotcha.
But I did see it on cable, and just there were parts of it like everybody else. Like I knew there was some parts I got the jokes, and some I didn't, but it was still funny. And then as you watch it as you get older, you're like, oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, it's got so many great bits. I mean, it works on, you know, we just made the comment of, you know, there's 6 jokes a minute. It's like they were aimed at everybody. It was a shotgun attitude towards the humor. It's like, this is a joke everyone will get. This is a joke only niche people will get. This is the joke that only the parents are going to get, and hope that the kid just. I think the one that hit me the hardest as a kid was, I think it was in that one, was the Rocky, like 70 poster.
I think that was in the second. That was the second.
That's in
movie.
the second one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd noticed that before. Yeah, because it's Paramount. There's a pun intended there. That you pay attention to the backgrounds as well. So this has got a rewatch factor that I don't know if that really existed before 1980. I mean, this was a film that was prime ready for the advent of cable and VCRs, so that people could rewatch this over and over and over again. And I don't know, you know, I can't. I'm hard pressed to think of a movie prior to this that depended so much on that. I think.
One of the main things I also remember is my mother trying desperately to explain to me why Jeff Bridges being in this was so important, because she was a huge fan of Sea Hunt.
Lloyd Bridges.
Lloyd Bridges.
Yes.
Yeah. The dude was not in this.
That you know
might
of.
have been. Yeah.
Mike?
For me, I was 13 at this point, so I was right about the same age as you, Mikey. And I did see it in the theater. We actually were down on vacation down in Florida to visit my grandparents, and my parents wanted to get me and my sister out of the house, basically, and away from the grandparents. And so they took us to go see this nice little comedy they had heard about called Airplane. And it was awesome. And like, you know, being 13, I got a lot of the jokes, loved a lot of the puns, and from the very first, like the Jaws scene at the beginning. But then when the guy was in the at the airport, hey, do you know where the forklift is? Yeah, it's over there, and the airplane goes right through the windows and everything. It's just awesome, and it's just not jokes. It's puns. It's visual, but it's also audio. You have to listen for the sounds. There's one joke through the whole movie when they're in the airplane that a lot of people miss and everything. And if you think about it, they're flying a jet airplane through the whole thing. If you notice, the sound is a prop plane the whole time and everything, and a lot of people don't realize that. And it's just like, it's so subtle, and it's like you just have to be paying attention to everything to it. It's just awesome.
Yeah, that's because the original movie 0 Hour was a prop plane, and Zucker wanted to use a prop airplane, and that was one of the notes they got from the studio from Paramount was, no, you can't use a prop plane. Everybody flies in jets now. So they were like, okay, well, we'll just still use that sound effect.
Exactly.
The original plan was actually to shoot 0 Hour shot for shot as a comedy. And then they kind of, as it developed, kind of became its own thing. And I think the only two things that are still from it are the fact the Ted Stryker character, the mention of George Zip, and the fish line. We have to find someone you could find that could fly this plane who didn't have the fish.
Yeah,
didn't have the fish.
It's actually, there is a good chunk of the dialogue is still straight. Yeah. It's just the way they played it. I've seen there's clips on YouTube I've seen of Airplane and 0 Hour side by side.
Right.
And it's just the delivery.
Yeah, and it's the reason why they had to buy the rights to 0 Hour to make the movie.
I have never seen 0 Hour. Now I wonder if I
You've
could.
just seen it in the funny version.
It's not good.
I was going to say, now I wonder if I could watch it and not, just
no,
not be able to, watch it by its own, right?
Yeah.
I was familiar with, as Mike said, I was familiar with the airport movies, and the disaster movies that were coming out willy-nilly in the late 70s.
They were like almost every 2 years there was like Airplane 75, Airplane 77. One time it was a 747 being hit by a small prop plane. The next time it was the engines go out on the Concorde or something like that. It was just like,
there's in a lot of ways too, this movie, because we talked about it a few weeks ago when we talked about It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Like, this movie kind of is like this. There's a passing of the torch here, right? It's just like in the same vein. Get a bunch of people together. Now, they didn't get comedians together like that one. This isn't full of comedians. It's full of, what's amazing is it's full of actors that are known for playing straight parts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And putting them all in a situation where it's hilarious.
Yeah, that was one of the most genius things about it, is because I've heard the stories of like when they were doing the movie and Nielsen was starting to show off his comedic chops, but he was like trying to do the lines funny, and they kept telling him, no, the more deadpan you do this, the funnier it is. And that's true. Really what makes it work. Because, trying to imagine like Robin Williams, for example, as Ted Stryker.
You couldn't do it. No. And it's funny because, Leslie Nielsen before this was the big heroic straight man in a lot of like dramas and sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah, he did a lot of the 50s and 60s sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly.
The very heroic looking in his jumpsuit.
He was, Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
This is the movie that completely changed his career and gave it a whole new second act.
Yeah.
Very much so.
In a good way. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, very much so. Robert Hayes, the only thing I had seen him in before this was the TV show Angie, if anyone remembers that, with Donna Pascoe.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never seen him in anything else before this.
I wasn't familiar with him. I certainly wasn't familiar with Julie Haggerty.
But this was her first film.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess that's why.
Yeah. Sigourney Weaver also.
Did she only do 2 movies? Because I've only seen her in these
the only
2.
things I've seen her in. I've seen her in a couple other things.
She did a movie with Dudley Moore, I want to say, also during that time. and I, for the life of me, cannot think of the movie, and I'm too lazy to look it up.
But then you had a lot of veterans, like then you had, Peter Graves, you
Yeah.
had, Lloyd
like
Bridges,
Gladiator
Robert
movies?
Stack. Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah. So have you ever seen a grown man naked? It's like, it's just awesome. It is just, there was some, it's like, so great. And I love in the second one, how they really played up the Mission Impossible part
Mhm.
and everything. But, in the first one, it was just awesome. He was the captain and everything.
Mhm.
And then you had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who I've never seen anything in, other movies before, but it was awesome. And the little kid going, "Hey, you're Kareem. I'm a big fan. But my dad thinks you don't run down the court fast enough."
You're lazy.
You tell your
Too
dad
late.
drank so-and-so down the court all night.
"No, son, my name is Roger."
I love the fact that this movie goes, wall, what fourth wall?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There are no walls in this movie at all. There's nothing. There's
Well, not
nothing
after the
too.
plane went through it. No.
There's nothing too outrageous. There's no place they won't go.
Yeah.
It was. I know I mentioned this before, but for the sake of this podcast, it was the first time I'd seen a topless woman on the big screen.
Oh,
So
I
that
know.
was.
Me too.
So that added to the rewatch value, of course.
oh yeah.
God bless
And
you.
it was so out of nowhere. It wasn't like there was a
No.
scene with someone undressing or anything. It was just everyone was panicking on the plane, and all of a sudden there's a pair of boobs. That's like
Exactly.
it's like
Why
it's
not?
like, why not? Exactly.
But yeah, and for like you, Mike, I was about hitting the early teens, so a lot of this humor, which is sexual Benny Hill type humor, I was just right there for. I got all of that, so that is it's pretty raunchy. I mean, this could be, well, it definitely would have been PG-13 if that had existed then. So that's for sure. I know that when it aired on TV, they had to cut quite a bit.
What part did they cut? What part did they cut that you're not happy about?
Oh, I don't look. I didn't watch it. I didn't spend time watching stuff on TV with that because I didn't like the way that they were cut. So I had I just rented or whatever. But this one was one that was a favorite movie of mine from very early on. And when it was on cable, I recorded it and I rewatched it over and over again. Prior to that, I think before I had a VCR, I recorded the audio off this. Like with my like little tape player and a little microphone like dangling by the speaker of the TV, and I would play the audio of this movie over and over and over again. And Mike, to your point, that's when I could hear like a lot of the audio jokes. I mean, everybody knows about the right away. It trains you right away to pay attention to the audio and stuff in the background too, because right away, like in the first few minutes, there's that whole like the white zone, red zone thing, which is just classic, right?
No, and
You just want me to get an abortion.
Exactly.
Well, it is the smart thing to do. If you, or Captain Unger, you please get to the white phone. That he picks up the red phone. No, the white phone.
So many good bits. Ashley, what are some of your favorite moments of the movie, or the humor that you like about it?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's hard, of course, to narrow it down, but I really like the interplay of the verbal and visual gags. One of my favorite moments is when you have the two people standing behind the captain and he's starting to go through the food poisoning symptoms, but they're like standing behind him. It's like, oh, you'll start to develop a fever, and you see him just pouring sweat, and it's like he'll go into convulsions and he's twitching, and and then he passes out, and you see him go through everything that they're saying behind him. I also like the guitar player who accidentally yanks out the poor girl's IV. It's like you just feel terrible for laughing, but my gosh, is it funny? Like she's just panicking and they're just singing. I love everything deadpan about Leslie Nielsen, about how he comes in like 3 times saying like, we're all counting on you. You've got to pull through. And he says it like 3 different times, just like the repetition of the joke. It's so good. And
I love how he's introduced to, because it's like, we're looking for a doctor. So, ma'am, are you a doctor? No, ma'am. But I think the guy next to me is, and he's there wearing stethoscope and everything.
Yes. It's just really great. And what somebody said earlier too, like if one joke is not funny to you, literally just wait another second because there will be something else funny.
Alex?
Yeah, there's a lot of greatness that's in there. Obviously, the banter, the speed at which the humor hits you. But I feel I would be remorse if we weren't talking about the star-making turn of this film. An actor who seemingly came out of nowhere, was not one of the main leads, and yet wound up on the cover of People magazine. And of course, I'm talking about Otto, the autopilot.
Of course.
Yeah. Who must have wanted too much money because he's not in the sequel.
Not in the well, there's some bad blood and all that. There was an issue on set.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
There was an auto non-compete clause.
Yeah. Oh. No, that was the whole thing with Otto was just hysterical when I was old enough to get it.
Sure.
So I just loved everything about that, and the fact that, in the end he wound up getting his own inflatable girlfriend, which I'm not even going to make a joke about. I think that was one of the easily identifiable characteristics of this film, as far as the visual gags go. Obviously, I also would be remiss if I didn't point out that I speak jive.
Oh God, that would not be able to be made now.
No,
there's quite a few.
There's a lot of there's a lot
would not be
that
able
would
to be done here.
That was kind of at the top of the list. I think most of the scenes with Otto the autopilot also could not be made now. But
I think if they got the right actress, they could do I Speak Jive if they made it to rap or something. But it would have to be
I don't know. The fact that it's
casting.
Barbara Billingsley is
That's why it works.
It's
Mrs. Cleaver. Yeah, it's Mrs. Cleaver.
It was almost Ozzie Harriet.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or Harriet Nelson, excuse me.
That would have worked.
Yeah, which and she turned it down because of the adult themes. But
wow.
I think Barbara Billingsley, who for most people, younger listeners, would know her as Nanny from Jim Henson's Muppet Babies.
Right.
Doing that whole scene where she's like talking smack back to them and finishes with Jive Turkey don't want no help, Jive Turkey don't get no help, is just so funny because it's Barbara Billingsley.
Yes.
It's like this movie is so filled with stunt casting.
Yes.
And hers is the one, she's the freaking evil Knievel of this movie. Mm-hmm. And she has one scene.
That's
true.
Awesome.
It's true. Gary, what about you? Something in the movie that stands out for you?
Well, aside from the I Speak Jive, which was going to be my first go-to.
I'm sorry.
What am I? Oh, that's fine. I figured it was someone had to get to it. I love the running gag of this. I picked a hell of a week to stop Bill and
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because it starts off with the traditional, smoking,
drinking,
and then by the end, sniffing glue.
Yeah, my parents were so pissed about that after. For the whole rest of the trip to Florida, me and my sister, who was 3 years younger than me, were like, oh, it's really bad time for us to stop eating peanut butter. Crap like that. And it was just like, my parents were like, okay, already, we saw the movie.
And I've always loved the gag of they're flying on instruments and it cut to the cockpit and they're all playing musical instruments. It is one of the gags I've always loved. I credit this movie with my love of puns. You're welcome, Deanna. There's so many of them.
It's amazing to me looking at watching this now and thinking, man, they went way out of their way for that gag. Like some of these gags aren't easy to film. They're not just like wordplay. I mean, they had to like come up with like a lot of stuff just to make that gag work.
Yeah. And we were talking about the stunt casting, getting Robert Stack and the character they gave him. Every scene is gold. From when we see him get dressed and he steps through the mirror to when he gets to the airport and decks everybody that you've ever wanted to hit in an airport.
Jerry's Kids, Jehovah's Witness. It's like, damn.
Scientology!
Ah! And then he took off the big sunglasses and he was wearing the small ones underneath.
Yes.
It was like, it was just awesome.
I actually pulled that joke off once.
Oh,
Did you?
I
nice.
did.
That is awesome.
We went to Whitewater and we're getting our season passes. And I set myself up so I had 2 pairs of sunglasses on and didn't tell any of my friends.
Nice.
So I could not see anything. I'm filling out my form as fast as I can. I get down there to get my photograph. The woman says, you have to take your sunglasses off. And with all of my friends watching, I whipped off the first pair, other pair underneath. And she's like, yeah, you need to take those off too. And I'm just like, my friends thought it was hysterical. My friends loved it.
Oh, well, because you have cool friends. That's the reason.
Have cool friends.
So that's awesome.
This is a reason why we are sponsored by Tifosi, right?
Yes.
So you
Exactly.
You could get 2 pairs of Tifosi sunglasses and be cool like Robert Stack.
Yes.
Exactly. Get small ones and big ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
TifosiOptics.com.
And to this day, anytime if I'm drinking something and I spill, it's like, oh, I have a drinking problem.
Yeah. I almost did it with my bottle tonight, but I was like, no, too much electronic equipment.
Yes.
A lot of things stay with you. Mike, what about you?
Oh my God. For me, it was a lot of the, like everyone's been saying, a lot of the cameos and everything. Cause like you had David Leisure, Joe Isuzu as one of the Hare Krishnas who went on the airplane. Yeah. You had Jimmy Walker, JJ. He was the guy who was checking the oil and cleaning the windshield of the airplane at the beginning. And he couldn't close the hood, and then when he got up there to slam it shut, he fell off the airplane and everything.
The thing that makes that even funnier too is if the only thing JJ Walker from is Good Times, he was referred to so many times as String Bean, and he was made fun of because he was so thin. That he cannot close that hood by himself. There's just no way. No. Even if he sat on it, there's no way it would budge because he's just too small.
He's just like this. He is like that thin.
All of that homework is done for you for the movie. Like, I think it works on that level just by watching the movie if you don't know it. But if you know, like, his character and how, like, thin he is, really, then it even makes it's even funnier, I think.
He was also in Airport Concord.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. But, yeah, it was kind of cool. You also had Joe Whelan, who was later on the Love Boat.
Yep.
As Captain Stubing's daughter. You also had, different people. You had James Hong as the Chinese general who did Harry Carey. And it was just awesome. But I also loved like the different news reports and everything that they had for, the newspapers and everything. And, oh, can we take a picture? Sure. And they take the pictures off the walls and everything like that. And of course, as a 13-year-old, when they said the shit's going to hit the fan, and it literally did, it was just awesome.
Yeah, more visual humor. For me, Otto is a thing into himself, but to me, the real breakout actor star of this picture is Steven Stucker. Like,
oh yes.
Air traffic controller Johnny, right?
Yeah.
This guy.
There's a salad, pennies.
This guy in the third act steals the damn movie from everybody around him.
Yep.
Doesn't take any of this seriously, and he's thrown in there. I'd never seen this guy before. To be honest, I'd never seen him. I haven't seen him in anything since, except for the second one. And yet this movie is hilarious in this movie. It's like, and the reaction, of course, of all of them to him. I think Lloyd Bridges is the one that has to respond to him the most. And he and Lloyd Bridges, man, they're great, like from the scene where like, what do you make of this? Oh, I can make a brooch. I can make a pterodactyl, like that kind of thing.
Or when he pulled the plug out the lights.
The plug out of there.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. Plugs it back in. You know,
The
and
thick,
Leon's getting
larger. The fog is getting thicker, and Leon's getting large. It's just out of nowhere.
It's ridiculous humor that doesn't. It's so. I don't know if it was improv. It feels improv. If someone actually wrote his lines, it just the way he delivers them, and they must have written the lines with him in mind, because there's just no way that anybody else could have pulled that off.
There's one other person who could have pulled it off, and he would have been too old for the part, and that's Paul Lynn.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Steven gives that vibe. I can tell you that I still use I can make a hat or a brooch or a pterodactyl.
Yeah.
That is in my weekly comments. It's just such there's a moment where the tower Rapunzel and he leaps across the screen.
Or anti-M.
Oh,
It's a twister.
It's a twister.
yeah, no, it's Steven Stucker was brilliant in that, and his career was far too short. He does have an appearance as the station master in Trading Places, which is probably the other big hit. But again, it's a very tiny role for him, and I feel like that's a lost opportunity. I feel like there should have been more with him because he was just such a genius.
You know what's interesting, that when you found out that David Letterman was actually the initial role for Stryker, they had written the role originally for Letterman.
That's an entirely different movie.
Oh God, yes. And I couldn't see him as a romantic lead at all.
No,
Neither
I could see him with a drinking problem, though.
Regarding Stucker, by the way, it does say here for Airplane, the writers gave Stucker straight lines for a scene to let him write his characters off the wall responses. So that's 100% him.
nice.
He has like 3 roles in the sequel too, I think. He shows up all over the place in the second one. I do want to talk about the second one a little bit because I rewatched that one. I love the second one as well. I think you can argue about the quality, but the second one to me is full of, I guess because it takes place in space, there's a lot more geeky, nerdy references, right off the bat, whereas the first movie, you've got the great, Jaws reference right off the bat. In the second one, you've got Battlestar Galactica music, a faux Star Wars crawl, and Star Trek, right? You've got the 3 references like right there. Like this is what this movie's gonna like target, right? Just great. I love that. And yeah, I was a fan of the second one and I've seen that one almost as much, I think, if not more than the first one. Ashley, what do you think of the second one?
Well, it's interesting. I was looking up a little about the second one before I watched it, just because I'd never seen it before, and apparently it was not as well received by critics. But
no,
I thought it was really entertaining. Maybe it was reading about some of that beforehand, but I thought it was really funny. Maybe not quite as great of a film as the first one, but there's a lot of really funny gags, especially since, like you mentioned, those geek references, like the computer from 2001: A Space Odyssey, the Enterprise literally showing up. I had no idea William Shatner was going to be in this movie, and I just about died when he showed up. I thought that was fantastic.
His entrance is amazing.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like I was
one of the
glad.
best gags.
What?
Yes,
we don't have a tower? Why doesn't anyone tell me these things?
That was one thing I was really glad I did not know beforehand, because that made it even better, just being surprised by William Shatner. So I thought it was really entertaining. I liked how they took it even more over the top. I thought, well, they're going to make a second movie. Are they just going to have another airplane disaster? But no, they're going to level up. They're actually going to space. And it's just even more ridiculous. And there's nothing realistic about this at all. And it's funny to see some of the outdated technology. Like, you still see old cars driving up to the airport, but yet we've got spaceships living in colonies on the moon. So it's just fantastic. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Alex, quick about the box office on the second one is
bad.
Was bad. Right.
Bad.
Yeah.
The word you're looking for is bad.
Yeah. So
$25 million.
Wow.
$25 million in 1982, 2 years after Airplane. This movie got the reputation of being rushed after the success of the first one, and I think there are parts where it feels like it. It doesn't look as realistic, in my opinion. A lot of the backdrops look like they're backdrops. And whereas, again, with most of the movie, it's taking place on the shuttle, which is great because, it sets you up, and you do get repeats on there. There's a callback during the many callbacks. But there's a wonderful callback with the shaking of the woman in the courtroom and slapping her, and then there's a line of people waiting to shake and slap the person.
Yeah.
Which
prior to that, you also get the callback to the jive.
Yep, you do get the jive callback.
It's like Airplane's greatest hits.
Yeah, it's like, hey, remember all of this stuff? We're gonna put this in here now, so you don't have to worry about it later.
Exactly.
But yeah, and I like the I like the introduction of the new romantic foil for it, who's piloting the plane before he turns to Jello. Literally. And
well, he wasn't even piloting. I think he was just an official
official. Okay.
Yeah, because it was Peter Graves, and then you had the two other folks up in the cockpit and including Elaine was up there too. Yeah, she was the computer operator.
Got an upgrade.
Yep. Yeah, she wasn't the flight attendant or stewardess as they were calling them back then.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a fun movie. It worked really well on cable. HBO played the heck out of this. If this wasn't playing, it was Porky's basically. And so you could still get that same kind of silly, gross out humor. But yeah, it didn't play as well. And I think there's a lot of stuff that you can see in the movie that if you're not just this diehard of the original, when you watch it, you absolutely are like, that's funny, that's consistent, I'm going to remember that stuff. I don't think it's as quotable, but I think it still holds up, at least on its own.
Gary, what do you think about the second one?
I remember when I watching it being disappointed as a kid because I felt like a lot of the jokes, I didn't understand callbacks as well, and I just thought it was like, I've seen this joke. Why are you telling me this joke again? And so I think that was also just a lot of people's reaction. It was just also the second time you do a pratfall, it's not as funny as the first time. I've come to appreciate it. I love all the new stuff, all the bits with Shatner. One of my favorites being what have we found out? Well, we found out that these lights blink, but these lights cycle. Like, well, get back to me when you find out what that's a great moment. And as we mentioned already, the first time we see him, and it turns out that the screen is a window, is perfection. So all that stuff, I didn't enjoy the courtroom stuff, the rehash of the first movie. I did not enjoy that as well. But all the stuff that was new, I liked.
Mike?
Well, there was a lot more boobs in this one than there were in the first one, because that's right off the bat, because I just watched the second one right before we went to record tonight. And I was just like going, man, I don't remember all these naked people and, women in this, or topless women. It was just like, compared to the first one, it was just like boom, boom, boom right after, or it's shaking, and they showed the woman's breasts going back and forth in the shirt, and of course it had moral majority across her top when they did that, of course. And of course, and it's like, and it was just like, for me, I didn't go see it at the movies either. I saw that on HBO the first time, and there's things as a geek I love about this movie, but overall, it's a lot more stupid than the first one. The first one was a lot more intelligent humor, and if you could call it that. This was just rehash after rehash after rehash, and it just didn't do it for me. I was watching it this evening, and I was just like, yeah, it's okay, but it was nowhere near as, like, I was laughing my ass off watching the first one. This one I was not at all.
Well, I think, a couple things. One, Abrams and Zucker have nothing to do with the second one. Well,
Right.
I say nothing to do, but since there's so many callbacks, they should have gotten a writing credit, I think.
Right.
So it's a whole new team. Watching it this time around, I was noticing a few things. One is that right away, like the airport stuff, to me was just as valid, and some of it even funnier. Like I love the gag with the two suitcases as dogs going after each other. Love that. I like the courtroom scene a lot for two reasons. One, I love Raymond Burr. Do you know what it's like to laugh like that? Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Yes, we
like,
do.
It's so good. I think about that. For some reason, that line has stuck with me my entire life. And I also love the Buddy couldn't handle it? No. Buddy was a bombardier. Andy went to pieces? No. Andy was great. Buddy came unglued. Like that scene I just love. That's great wordplay. That's like Abbott and Costello wordplay.
Over
That scene
Macho
right there.
Grande.
I don't think I'll ever be over
Macho Grande.
And then you put Shatner in there, and of course, me being the big Kirk geek that I am, he's great. The movie changes in tone. This is what I noticed when I watched it this weekend. That the third act, once Shatner's introduced, it seems like it is a little bit weaker because you have so much of Shatner and so little of anything else.
Mhm.
It almost is like they ran out of the budget and they just said, for jokes or whatever, and they just said, well, we'll just let Shatner do everything and then do all the heavy lifting, and then we'll just kind of, coast at home.
I'm sure that was part of his contract anyway. So
It could have been. I mean, look, if you can afford Shatner, then you have to take the hit on other things. I get that. But I think you're right. I think the budget wasn't as strong because it's supposed to take place in space. The sets look, even for the 80s, they look pretty weak. That kind of thing. And the special effects are okay. I was tickled, but I was also bothered by the fact that the soundtrack is pretty much the music from Battlestar Galactica. I love Battlestar Galactica, and in the beginning it was kind of funny, but then they kept using the music of Battlestar Galactica, and I was like, that's just lame. Like, you guys don't even have your own music. Because I think the music in the first one is like the ultimate straight man. With everything that's going on that's insane, the music for the first one kind of keeps that like, no, people, it keeps telling you, this is dramatic. Even if what you're seeing visually beyond the music, in front of the music, like is insane. The music is telling you, no, this is dire. People are in trouble.
Yeah, again, it's the more straight you play it, the funnier it gets.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you notice the very young Pat Sajak as one of the newscasters?
Oh yeah.
And Colonel, and what was it, General Burkhofer as the Russian one from Hogan's Heroes?
There does seem like there's like some wasted cast members, and like Airplane, the first one makes use of all their cast to a great extent, whereas the second one has these cameos by people, and some of them work and most of them are just kind of there in the background. So I think they could have done, if they had maybe it was rushed. Maybe if you had got the original team on there, maybe if they'd waited a couple years, they would have had more science fiction to kind of spin off of and kind of make fun of, and it could have really been funny that way. It seems like it's prime for a bunch of Space 1999 jokes, but there's not really in there because, I don't know, people really cared about Space 1999 by that point. But I mean, really, the moon base and everything, it's right there.
Moonbase Alpha Beta. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's Moonbase Alpha Beta. So they could have done some, it seemed like there was some missed opportunity. So yeah, I will concede that it's not as strong as the first one. But yet I cannot deny my love for it. It has got scenes and quotes in there that have stuck with me to this day.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, if we're comparing Airplane 2 to Airplane,
right?
I mean, there are movies that I would not watch at all given the option of watching Airplane 2 instead. It's one of those things. No, it's not as good as Airplane. Airplane is phenomenal.
Right.
All right. It's
Right.
one of the
Good
best
call.
movies of the 1980s. And so it's weird to say don't compare Airplane 2 to Airplane because they have one or two connections. But and being a sequel and all.
Many more than that.
Yeah.
The main similarity to me is like comparing Jaws 2 to Jaws.
Yes.
To throw back
Yeah.
to that reference.
No, that's a great way.
Yeah.
You
I
can
think
tell
that, yeah. I would put Airplane 2 much higher than I put Jaws 2.
Yeah.
But I agree with that concept. Yes.
Superman 3 as compared to Superman, when there's a cash grab going on and it's an obvious cash grab, your quality is going to go down. That's just how it is. But it doesn't change the fact that there are moments in it that are exceedingly funny. I get a thrill every time I see Sonny Bono buy the third bomb from the left
Yes, exactly.
in the convenience store inside the airport.
Yep.
Ultra conservative Sonny Bono.
That's a joke that just wouldn't work now.
Yeah.
no.
Well, I mean, it's not like you're throwing a football to him or something.
Or asking him to go skiing.
Skiing, yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I went there.
I know.
Sadly, I went with the Kennedy one that was skiing and playing football, which was wrong. So, yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, it's a fun time, and the movies. It's better on a smaller screen.
Yeah.
It is much better on television than I think it would have been on the big screen.
God, I had forgotten the whole scene where they're at the airport still and said, "Oh, sorry, you can't bring that dog with you." And the guy
sorry,
pulls
his
out the
straps
gun.
will have to be shot.
Shot.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just kidding. It's a blank.
I was like, damn, did they just... One thing I didn't notice until I watched it this time too is I guess I'd never saw it all the way through to the end credits because the fact that they had an ad for Airplane 3 said coming soon, and followed by Shatner saying that's just what they'll expect us to do. It's kind of ironic, actually. I don't know if they actually intended to do a third one, but I thought that was interesting. We pointed this out a little bit when we talked about It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And in this one, definitely, like, these movies can't be made like in the same way.
Oh, no,
right?
no.
Is that a good thing? I miss these kind of movies. I miss these kind of movies that just say, I certainly don't want to see anything that's terribly offensive, but I also, I don't want, I'm tired of, I don't want movies play it safe, right?
Yeah. The only thing I keep coming back to is that spate of attempted parodies in the 90s, 2000s. Like Not Another Teen Movie, those things which were terrible.
Or the Hot Shots or Hot Shots.
Hot Shots I like. I like Hot Shots.
That still had Zucker's involvement.
Yeah.
The Naked Gun did too, and yeah.
But the thing is, out of these movies, you did get Naked Gun too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Naked Gun, Police Squad.
Yep. Well, you got Police Squad first, and then you got
Right.
Naked Gun.
Top Secret.
I'll still never forget
favorites.
Top Secret's wonderful.
Oh, Top Secret's amazing.
Yeah.
I'll never forget one time for the anniversary, A&E ran. They did a weekend-long marathon of the Police Squad. When you realize that's 6 episodes at half an hour for 2 days. It was kind of hilarious.
So you can walk away 2.5 hours, come back, see the same episode.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
Mhm, exactly.
awesome.
You'd have to get the right fearless director and writer. The closest I think anybody's come to it in the recent years at all was the Farrelly brothers. Had that level of fearlessness. I didn't care for their work, but I appreciated it.
I think the Farrelly brothers had a lot of stuff that they did with a lot of heart behind it. I think Stuck on You is actually one of the funnier films that I've seen. I would actually go in a different direction than the Farrellys. I would recommend perhaps a Judd Apatow.
Yeah.
Him working with people like Seth Rogen and it was Evan Goldberg, doing things like Superbad. was a movie that took a lot of risks.
Yeah, that
and
40-year-old virgin.
Yeah, and
also.
40-Year-Old Virgin, another one
Yep.
that could have just been a disaster, but took risks. I think the American Pie series, when it first started, was another one that was willing to be funny, dirty, and in some cases gross out, but still maintained a sense of heart. I think the problem with making a movie like this now, one is anybody who's doing one is going to see, oh, it's a parody. And parodies right now do not have the flavor because of things like not another teen movie, epic movie, Scary Movie 4, things like
Superhero movie. Yeah.
a superhero
Yeah.
movie, you know, all of those, you know. And if you're obviously not making it to be cheap and quick and just hit the pop culture references, that's the biggest problem, is you need somebody to make this film where it's not just, we're not going for the cheap, easy gag. We're going for the long term. Yes, it's stupid, but you're going to laugh when we hit the punchline.
Oh, look at Dumb and Dumber. You know, that's a good one. Yeah.
Well, and again, that's the Fairleys. So,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
To Gary's point.
You have to have a love for the material.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
I was trying to, there's one or two recently I was trying to, and it's like I had them on the tip of my brain and they're fading away, but you have to have this, you're in on the joke.
Yeah. The other thing you have to do is you have to get both the Hollywood actors and their agents to be on board. And I don't think that you're going to be able to pull that off, because I think a lot of people in Hollywood, as far as themselves, take themselves far too seriously to be parodying themselves. Robert Stack, brilliant in this. Lloyd Bridges, wonderful, relaunched his career because he wound up doing Hot Shots as well. You know, so I think there are certain actors, and maybe it's, you get to a point where you're okay to parody yourself, like an Adam West or a William Shatner. But the big problem is being willing to be made a fool of and not think it's going to hurt your career.
I just realized the movie that I was that was like, I know it. It's going to Galaxy Quest.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've
has
talked
to be
about
that
that.
kind of level of loving.
You have to have the
genre you're
love for it.
making
Yeah.
fun of it.
Yeah.
I think also too is that, and we mentioned this before with the other movie we were talking about, was a lot of the humor that's in Airplane and Airplane 2 in these movies is what's known as dad jokes now.
Yeah.
And that does not speak
yes.
to a young, hip demographic.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be, you're not going to be able to sell a studio on like, oh, it's full of dad jokes. It's just going to be like, next, you know, like, no, the kids don't want to see that. Right.
Yeah.
And this was, you know, I mean, yes, it's raunchy, but in some ways it's kind of, you know, it's got something for everybody. You can take the kids, they're not going to get it. It's going to fly over their heads. Right. For the most part. And that is a pun. Okay, thanks.
You got your appropriate moment of silence.
These are dad jokes, people.
These are all they got.
He's writing Airplane 3.
Yeah, see, you guys are proving my point, really.
Yeah, actually, the next one should be Airplane 5. Just skip straight to 5.
No, it should be Airplane. Well, that's the year where I mean, it's a Airplane 2020. That's a
or just Airplane, the reboot.
Airplane, Tokyo Drift.
and you know, obviously, you know, disaster movies, that kind of thing, not necessarily a thing now. You have to be careful, especially with planes and disaster plane movies. I mean, that is that's something that is got to be sensitive about. So I can understand why this is not something that we're going to see a reboot of. With everything else that's been remade and rebooted, I can see where these movies are just going to be standalone movies for a long time.
Oh yeah, very
I'm
much
okay
so.
with that.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, because I saw the trailers for that Chips movie, and that was enough.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Good point there.
Good point. All right. So, any last words before we get out of here on Airplane 2, the sequel? Ashley?
Just wanted to say one thing that impressed me was how well the movie had aged, particularly the first one. If you're watching it 40 years from now and you're still laughing at the jokes, that's a sign of good comedy. I feel like sometimes a lot of comedy nowadays leans on of the moment pop culture jokes, which is great and really funny. But like if you pick that up and watch it 20 years from now, is it still going to be funny? Will people get the reference? I think there's some of that in Airplane, but there's enough going on that you can still get the jokes and laugh at what's going on as a part of the film.
Alex?
Good comedy comes from the heart. Great comedy comes from the heart and mind. This film was put together both smartly and with a lot of heart. And the fact that so many people looked at this film and said, no, I don't want to do it. And they're all either in it or they say, it's my greatest regret in Hollywood is that I didn't do this film. Airplane is magnificent. Airplane 2 is fine on its own. But I think Airplane is a movie that should be shown in every screenwriting class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would be out for that. Gary?
I just want to throw out one of my last favorite jokes that we can get to is the taxi driver with the meter still running.
He's still there.
Even all the way at the end of the movie, he's still just like, he's going to be back any minute.
I'll give him 20 more minutes.
Yeah.
That's it.
20 more.
One of my first after credit scenes too.
Yeah. But yeah, to echo what everyone else said, sure, some of the jokes don't hold up, but comedy is the genre that ages the most and usually does not age well at all. The fact that this still stands up, and just last week a Steelbook version came out for people to pick up for the 40th anniversary, which I'll be getting, even though I've got the 35th anniversary Don't Call Me Shirley edition.
Surely you must be joking.
Scenes. I need to research that because the version I have, the edition I have has deleted scenes, but they're incorporated in the movie. So I didn't know that until after I watched the movie, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll need to rewatch it at some point now to see those deleted scenes. So.
Darn.
Darn, I feel bad for you, Mikey.
I don't know what they left on the floor, but I'm kind of curious about it. So
yeah. But yeah, there's a reason 40 years later that we still have a drinking problem.
Mike?
For me, it's, this is going to be an ageless movie. This was a movie I was thrilled to be able to show William when he was 8. And, him enjoying it and seeing and liking it at the time and laughing at some of the stuff. And so glad a lot of it went over his head at that point. So it was awesome. But, it was great to see these actors who you've seen in so many serious roles not taking themselves so seriously. And that was just awesome. And I don't know, it was like I was thinking about it. I put this up there with almost like Blazing Saddles with humor that can't be done ever again. And very smart, very intelligent way of looking at a film. And yes, it was a parody, but it was also a fun story on top of it. And I just had fun with it and laughed my ass off on Saturday night watching it again. And, I kept on going, I'm just going to watch it, glance up every once in a while, but I'll be on my computer most of the time. But instead, I was there glued to it the whole time, looking for anything I hadn't seen before, laughing at all these jokes and, saying, oh, I recognize that person, stuff like that. And that was just what was awesome about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time. Definitely recommend it. That said, I just want to tell you all good luck. We're all counting on you. And we'll be back after this message to close the show.
And we're done. Boom.
Hey.